In the heart of ancient China, a scholar named Chan sought refuge from the clamor of the world. He took a room in a remote mountain monastery, surrounded by valleys of untouched solitude. Buddhist priests tended the temple, drifting through quiet rituals like shadows among ancient trees. Chan devoted himself entirely to the great classics, emerging only when the weight of study drove him to walk the misty hillsides. One afternoon, as Chan wandered the hillside in a dreamlike trance, thundering hooves shattered the stillness. A hunting party from the city of Eternal Spring burst into view, hounds baying, banners streaming in the wind. At their head rode a figure that stopped Chan dead in his tracks. A young woman mounted on a fiery little steed, her face flushed with the thrill of the chase. Her name was Willow, daughter of the chief mandarin of Eternal Spring. She wore a trim hunting dress that showed her graceful figure to perfection. Her face was the loveliest Chan had ever beheld, coal-black eyes alight with spirit as she urged her horse forward after a fox fleeing through the valley. In that single, breathless moment, Chan felt his heart fly from his chest, lost to her forever. Chan learned she was Willow, the mandarin's daughter, fiercely devoted to the hunt. He began to dream of making her his wife, imagining a life together bathed in sunlight. But before he could compose a single letter of courtship, devastating news arrived from the city. Willow had died suddenly, struck down without warning. The light went out of Chan's world. For days he could do nothing but sit alone, drowning in grief. A few weeks later, the mountain quiet was broken by a long procession winding up the path. Men in sackcloth led the way, musicians behind them playing shrill, mournful notes on pipes and drums. A coffin draped in a red pall was carried through the monastery gates and laid on trestles in an inner room. The red cloth told Chan everything he feared. It was the body of a woman. Chan asked a priest whose body rested within the temple walls. The old bonze explained that the girl's father, the Mandarin of Eternal Spring, had received an urgent imperial transfer to a distant province. He could not carry his daughter's coffin on such a long journey, nor leave it for the new official. So he begged the monastery to shelter it until he could someday return and bear her home to rest. Chan was shattered. The woman he loved lay dead behind a wall mere steps from his own room. That night, when the monastery slept and the corridors lay black as ink, he crept with a lighted taper to the chamber of death. Kneeling beside the coffin, he poured out his heart in trembling words, telling Willow of the love that had seized him the instant he saw her galloping across the hills. Night after night, Chan returned to the coffin. Not a single evening passed without his whispered confession of undying love. He spoke to Willow as though she stood before him, describing the sorrow that had hollowed his chest. The temple lay shrouded in darkness, the priests lost in sleep, and his love notes echoed softly in the emptiness, the only sound in a world that had gone utterly silent. Then one evening, as Chan sat poring over his books, he turned and froze. A young girl stood in his doorway, so ethereal she seemed woven from moonlight. A smile lit her features, and his heart leapt. It was Willow. She sat beside him and spoke in a trembling voice. She had come in answer to his love, the magnet that had drawn her spirit back from the land of shadows. Even Yamlo, the dread lord of the dead, had been moved by Chan's devotion. He granted Willow two gifts never before given to any mortal soul. She could read the book of life and death, learning the family and place of her next rebirth, and she would keep her memories intact. She told Chan her new name and home, begging him to write it down. In 18 years, she would be waiting. Tears streamed down Willow's face as the moment of parting arrived. The gates of Hades were closing, and she was to be born again into a distant province, to parents who would name her precious pearl. She clasped Chan's hand one last time. A smile of ineffable sweetness flashed across her beautiful features, and then she was gone, vanishing like mist before the morning sun, leaving Chan alone in the cold, silent dark. The years crawled by. Chan buried himself in his books and prayed to the goddess of mercy, the deity who watches over lovers and the lost. But time was cruel. Silver threaded through his hair, and wrinkles carved themselves into his brow. He had given his whole heart to a woman he might never win, and the strain of 18 years of waiting had aged him far beyond his years. One evening, as Chan sat brooding, a man dressed in black slipped silently into his room. His smile was warm and disarming, and he spoke with an authority that stilled Chan's fears at once. He was a fairy from the western heaven, sent by the rulers of the immortal realm. They had heard of Chan's unwavering love and wished to help reunite the two devoted hearts before the appointed day arrived. The fairy led Chan outside and waved his hand skyward. Instantly, a magnificent eagle descended and landed at their feet. They mounted the great bird, and it launched into the night, piercing through layer after layer of dark clouds until stars blazed around them in the silent vastness. Chan clung tight, heart pounding, until a land fairer than any dream rose shimmering before them, the western heaven. The fairy led Chan through gardens of impossible beauty to a palace of golden pillars. There, seated upon a jade throne, was the goddess of mercy herself. She spoke with tenderness, understanding his fear of growing old while his beloved stayed young. She led him to a hidden lake, the fountain of eternal youth, and bade him bathe. He plunged in, and age fell away like a shed skin. Restored to youth, Chan journeyed to the distant province and found Precious Pearl, Willow reborn. She recognized him instantly, her coal-black eyes blazing with joy. They were married at last, their devotion blessed by heaven, the goddess of mercy, and even the Lord of the dead himself. This tale reminds us